3 months after the Council's rejection, Captain Min-Soo Choi guided his ship through the darkness between stars. The vessel had no name that appeared in any official records. Its hull was black as space itself and covered with technology that bent light around it. To any watching eyes, the ship simply did not exist. In the pilot seat next to him, Ji-won Hun checked their position. "We're entering Velkari space now, Captain," she whispered, though there was no one to hear them. "Their patrol routes are exactly where our intelligence said they would be." Behind them, Young-ho Park monitored the ship's systems. Every circuit had been designed for silent running. The engines made no heat signature. The computer cores generated no electromagnetic radiation. Even the air recycling system had been muffled to prevent any possible detection. At the communication station, Hee-jin Lim listened to alien radio chatter. Her job was to learn everything she could about what the Velkari were really doing in their space. The official reports to the Galactic Council said they were a peaceful people, focused on art and philosophy. The reality was very different. "Captain," Hee-jin called softly, "I'm picking up military frequencies. They're discussing troop movements near the narrow border. This doesn't sound like a peaceful species to me." Min-Soo nodded. This was the 8th star system they had visited in secret. Each time they found the same thing. The galaxy was not the peaceful place the Council claimed it to be. Every species was preparing for war with someone. Resources were running low across multiple sectors. Ancient hatreds were boiling over into open conflict. "Take us closer to their military stations," Min-Soo ordered. "I want detailed scans of their weapons and ships." For 6 hours they observed the Velkari fleet. What they saw was disturbing. The crystal beings had built weapons designed to shatter the molecular bonds of other species. Their ships could turn entire planets into clouds of dust. These were not the tools of a peaceful civilization. When they had gathered enough information, Min-Soo set course for home. They had 12 more systems to scout before their mission was complete. Each one revealed more secrets that the Galactic Council did not want humanity to know. 2 weeks later, Min-Soo stood in a briefing room on Luna Base. Around the table sat the most powerful humans in the solar system. President So-young Kim had flown in from Earth. General Tae-hyun-yu represented the military forces. Dr. Sungmin Park was there for the science division. "What did you find out there?" President Kim asked. Min-Soo activated a holographic display. Star charts filled the air above the table. Red zones marked areas of conflict. Yellow zones showed resource shortages. Green zones, areas of actual peace, were frighteningly rare. "The galaxy is a lie," Min-Soo said simply. "They rejected us for being violent, but every species we observed is either at war or preparing for one. The Thornax Collective is building invasion fleets. The Cyber Dominion is experimenting with illegal artificial intelligence. The stellar clans are strip mining entire solar systems for raw materials." Dr. Park leaned forward. "What about the ancient ruins we detected in the galactic core?" "Did you get close enough to scan them?" "That's the most disturbing part," Min-Soo replied. He changed the display to show readings from the galaxy's center. "There's something big out there. Something old. And it's starting to wake up." The energy readings were unlike anything in human databases. The signatures suggested technology millions of years old but somehow still active. Whatever civilization had built it was far more advanced than any current galactic species. "The Council knows about it," Young-ho added. "We intercepted encrypted communications. They're scared. Really scared. That's why they're all building weapons and forming alliances. They know something is coming and they don't think they can stop it." President Kim studied the data for a long time. "So they rejected us because they think we're too primitive to help them, but they're desperate enough to prepare for a war they probably can't win." "That's about the size of it," General Yu said. "The question is, what do we do about it?" The room fell silent. Everyone knew this moment would come eventually. Humanity had always been good at preparing for the worst possible situations. It was a trait that had helped them survive ice ages, plagues, and world wars. Now it might be the key to surviving whatever was stirring in the galactic core. "We warn them," President Kim decided. "We give them one chance to do the right thing." 3 days later, Hyunwoo Park stood once again before the Galactic Council. This time, he was not asking for anything. This time, he was the one delivering judgment. "Honored members," he began, "humanity has withdrawn its application for membership in your council. We no longer wish to join your organization." A murmur of surprise ran through the chamber. This was not what the aliens had expected to hear. However, Hyunwoo continued, "As a gesture of goodwill between our species and yours, we offer you a warning. Our observations have detected significant threats to galactic stability. We strongly advise all member species to implement immediate defensive protocols." High Counselor Veltar's forearms moved in annoyance. "What threats?" he demanded. "Humanity has been confined to your solar system. How could you possibly know of galactic threats?" Hyunwoo smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "We recommend evacuation of all non-essential populations from border worlds. Begin stockpiling resources and materials. Prepare your military forces for extended conflict. What is coming will test every civilization in this galaxy." The chamber erupted. Aliens shouted questions in dozens of languages. Some demanded proof. Others accused humanity of trying to manipulate the council. A few of the wiser species began to look worried. Thexmol, the same Velkari who had spoken against humanity months earlier, rose from his seat. "This is clearly an attempt to cause panic and chaos," he said. "Humans are angry about their rejection, so they make up stories to frighten us." "We demand evidence," called out the Neral delegate. "Show us proof of these supposed threats." Hyunwoo looked around the chamber. These beings had called humans primitive and barbaric. They had quarantined Earth like a plague world. They had dismissed human capabilities without ever taking time to understand what humanity could do. "We have offered our warning," Hyunwoo said calmly. "What you do with it is your choice. But know this. When the time comes, do not expect humanity to risk our lives saving civilizations that want nothing to do with us." He turned and walked toward the exit. Behind him, the chamber descended into chaos. Some species demanded that humans be forced to share their information. Others insisted the whole thing was a trick. A few began making quiet plans to contact Earth directly. War Chief Graktor of the Stellar Clans watched the human leave with thoughtful eyes. Graktor had fought in more battles than most beings had seen sunrises. He knew the look of a warrior who had seen real danger. The human ambassador was not lying or exaggerating. Something bad was coming, and somehow the quarantined humans knew about it. As Hyunwoo's ship departed the council station, he sent a coded message to Earth. It contained only 2 words. "Warning delivered." On Luna Base, Admiral Jin Ho-yoon received the message and nodded. The galaxy had been given its chance. If they chose to ignore the warning, that was their decision. Humanity would be ready either way. Deep in the galactic core, ancient machines began to stir after eons of sleep. The countdown to galactic war had begun, and only one species seemed to understand what was coming. Dr. Yoonji Kang pressed her face against the observation window of Research Station Sejong. The station floated in the empty space between solar systems, hidden from alien sensors by advanced stealth technology. From here, she could monitor the entire galaxy without anyone knowing humans were watching. "The readings are getting stronger," she said to Professor Woo Jin Lee, who sat at a bank of computers behind her. "Whatever is in the galactic core, it's definitely waking up." Woo Jin nodded grimly. He had been studying the energy patterns for months now. At first, they had been random spikes that could have been explained as natural phenomena, solar flares perhaps, or black hole activity. But as time passed, the patterns became too regular, too purposeful to be natural. "Show me the latest data," Yoonji requested. The professor activated a holographic display that filled the room. The galaxy appeared as a spiral of lights, with Earth's position marked in yellow, near one of the outer arms. At the center, where billions of stars clustered together, red warning indicators pulsed like a heartbeat. "The energy output has increased by 30% in the last week," Woo Jin explained. "And look at this." He highlighted several points around the core. "These are ancient structures we've detected on dead worlds. They're all activating at the same time." Research assistant Bo-ram Kim looked up from her workstation. "The probe network is picking up movement," she announced. "Something big is coming out of the core region." Humanity had secretly placed thousands of tiny surveillance probes throughout the galaxy. Each one was no larger than a grain of sand, but together they formed an invisible network that could monitor everything happening in galactic space. It was a project that had taken 20 years to complete, and now it was paying off. "Put it on the main screen," Yoonji ordered. The image that appeared made everyone in the room go silent. In the depths of space near the galactic core, something enormous was moving. It was mechanical, but unlike any machine any of them had ever seen. Parts of it seemed to be made of living metal that flowed like water. Other sections pulsed with energy that hurt to look at directly. "How big is that thing?" Boram whispered. Wu Jin ran the calculations. "About the size of Earth's moon," he said quietly. "And it's just the first one. Our long-range sensors show dozens more behind it." Yunji felt a chill run down her spine. She had studied alien technology for most of her adult life, but this was beyond anything she had encountered. "Get me a connection to Admiral Yoon," she said. "He needs to see this immediately." On Luna Base, Admiral Jin Ho Yoon was already in an emergency meeting when the call came in. Around the table sat the heads of every major human military and scientific organization. Colonel Jae Sung-yu was there representing the Special Forces. Chief Engineer Mi Young-shin had come from the shipyards where humanity's secret fleet was being built. Fleet Admiral Kyung-ho Nam commanded the forces that would fight if war came. "Admiral," Yoonji's voice came through the speakers, "we have confirmation. The ancient machines are active and they're heading toward inhabited space." The room fell silent. Everyone had hoped this day would never come, but they had all been preparing for it. Admiral Yoon activated the main display, which showed the same images that Yoonji was seeing from her research station. "What are we looking at exactly?" Colonel Yu asked. Dr. Sungmin Park, humanities expert on ancient alien technology, stood up to address the group. "Based on the archaeological evidence we've gathered over the years, these are called the Devourers. They're a machine intelligence that consumed most of the galaxy millions of years ago." He activated his own display, showing ancient writings and artwork found on dead worlds throughout human space. Every advanced civilization eventually discovers traces of them. The current galactic species are just the latest life forms to evolve after the last Devourer cycle ended. How did the previous civilizations fight them? Admiral Nam wanted to know. "They didn't," Dr. Park replied grimly. "As far as we can tell, the Devourers consumed everything. The only reason any life survived was that they eventually went dormant again, probably because they ran out of energy sources." Chief Engineer Shin leaned forward. "What kind of energy sources?" "Stars, planets, entire solar systems. They don't just destroy civilizations. They consume the physical matter and energy that makes life possible in the first place." The implications hung heavy in the air. This was not a war that could be won through traditional military tactics. The enemy was not interested in conquest or resources or territory. They wanted to devour everything that existed. "How long do we have?" Admiral Yoon asked. Yoonji's voice came through the speakers again. "Based on their current speed and trajectory, they'll reach the outer rim of inhabited space in about 6 months. The first species they encounter will probably be the Velkari." Admiral Yoon almost smiled at the irony. The crystal beings who had been so quick to call humans violent would be the first to face true destruction. "What's the status of Project Aegis?" Colonel Yu consulted his tablet. "The planetary defense grid is 97% complete. All major population centers are protected by shield generators and orbital weapons platforms. The underground cities can house the entire population if necessary. And the fleet?" Admiral Nam took over the briefing. "We have 12 Terra-class battleships ready for combat, with 8 more in final construction. The new weapons systems have been tested and are performing beyond expectations. The stealth frigates are already deployed throughout the galaxy, in case we need intelligence or first strike capability." Chief Engineer Shin added her report. "The shipyards are working at maximum capacity. We can produce additional vessels, but it takes time. Each battleship requires 6 months to build with our current resources." Admiral Yoon processed all the information. Humanity had spent 50 years preparing for a war with the galaxy, not for a war to save the galaxy. But their preparations might be enough for either situation. Send the second warning, he decided. Give them the truth this time. Show them what's coming. 2 days later, emergency broadcasts went out to every inhabited world in the galaxy. The messages were simple and direct. Ancient machines were coming to destroy all life. Every species needed to begin immediate evacuation and defensive preparations. Attached to each message were the probe recordings showing the Devourers in motion. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. Some species accused humanity of fabricating the evidence. Others demanded to know how humans had obtained such detailed information from across the galaxy. A few began the evacuations immediately. On the Galactic Council Station, High Counselor Veltar called an emergency session. The ancient Ethon leader had lived through many crises, but never anything like this. If the human warnings were true, then every decision the Council had made for the past 1,000 years had been meaningless. "We need to verify this information," he announced to the assembled delegates. "Send scout ships to investigate the galactic core." But War Chief Graktor of the Stellar Clans was already receiving reports from his own forces. 3 of his patrol fleets had gone missing near the core region. Their last transmission spoke of massive structures emerging from hyperspace before the signals cut off completely. "The humans are telling the truth," Graktor said grimly. "I've lost contact with 12 warships. Whatever's out there, it's real and it's heading our way." The chamber erupted in panic. For the first time in galactic history, every species faced the same enemy. The old conflicts and territorial disputes suddenly seemed trivial compared to the threat of complete extinction. Thexmol, the Velkari representative, stood on shaking crystal legs. "What do we do?" he asked. "How do we fight something like this?" All eyes turned to the human observer in the gallery. Hyunwoo Park had been given permission to attend the emergency session, though he was not allowed to speak unless asked a direct question. "Ambassador Park," High Counselor Veltar said formally, "does humanity have any suggestions for defending against this threat?" Hyunwoo stood slowly. He looked around the chamber at all the species that had rejected and quarantined his people. Now they wanted human help to survive. "We do," he said simply, "but it will require changes that this council has shown it is unwilling to make." Hyunwoo Park stood at the edge of the great chamber. His hands shook slightly as he looked at the massive room before him. Thousands of alien beings filled the space. Some floated in the air. Others crawled on multiple legs. A few glowed with strange light. This was the Galactic Council, and today they would decide if humans could join them. Behind Hyunwoo sat 3 other humans. Sujin Lee was Earth's best expert on alien life. She had spent 20 years studying every species they had met. Dongmin Kim wore his military uniform with pride. He had fought in the border wars and knew how to handle dangerous situations. The 3rd human was Ki Tae-yoon, a diplomat who had helped write the application they were presenting today. Hyunwoo walked to the center of the chamber. A bright light shone down on him. He could feel millions of eyes watching him through cameras that would broadcast this moment across the galaxy. He cleared his throat and began to speak. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," he said, "I am Hyunwoo Park, speaking for all humans on Earth. We come before you today with respect and hope. We wish to join your great community of civilized worlds." A low rumble filled the chamber. Some aliens made clicking sounds. Others whistled or hummed. Hyunwoo could not tell if these sounds were good or bad. The first to speak against them was Thexmol of the Velkari. The crystal being stood tall and spoke in a voice like breaking glass. "The humans are too violent," Thexmol said. "They fight wars on their own planet. They build weapons that could destroy cities. How can we trust such creatures?" Hyunwoo wanted to argue. Yes, humans had wars, but they also had art and music and love. They helped each other in times of trouble. They explored space not to conquer, but to learn. But the rules said he could only speak once until the voting began. Next came the Neral delegate. The fish-like creature spoke through a water-filled tank. "Humans destroy their own world," it said. "They poison their oceans and kill their forests. They cannot even take care of one planet. Why should we let them near ours?" More voices joined in. The insect queen Zakth buzzed angrily about human social problems. A robotic being listed all the crimes humans had committed against each other. A plant-like alien complained that humans ate meat. For 3 hours, the complaints continued. Every species seemed to have something bad to say about humans. Hyunwoo felt his heart sink lower with each word. Behind him, he could hear Sujin crying softly. Dongmin's jaw was tight with anger. Kite just stared at his hands. Finally, the time came for voting. The High Counselor Veltar of the Ethon Empire called for order. Veltar was ancient even by alien standards. His blue skin was covered in scars from countless battles. His forearms moved as he spoke. "The question before us is simple," Veltar announced. "Should humanity be granted membership in the Galactic Council? All those in favor, please signal now." Lights began to glow throughout the chamber. Each species had their own way of voting. Some raised tentacles. Others flashed colors. A few sang notes. Hyunwoo tried to count, but there were too many beings to track. The counting took 20 minutes. When it was done, Veltar looked directly at Hyunwoo. His ancient eyes showed no emotion. "The vote is complete," Veltar said. 847 against, 23 in favor, 45 abstentions. "The application for human membership is denied." The words hit Hyunwoo like a physical blow. Denied. After 50 years of preparation, after proving they could travel between stars, after showing they could be peaceful, after everything, the galaxy said no. Veltar was not finished. Furthermore, he continued, "This council finds that humanity is not ready for galactic citizenship. Your species shows too many signs of primitive behavior. You are violent, destructive, and unstable. Perhaps in 1,000 years, when you have evolved beyond your current barbaric nature, we might consider your application again." The High Counselor paused and looked around the chamber. "Until that time, Earth will remain under quarantine protocols. No human ships may travel beyond your solar system without special permission. No human may set foot on Council worlds. This decision is final." Hyunwoo felt numb. Quarantine. They were being treated like a disease, like something dangerous that needed to be kept away from civilized beings. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The chamber began to empty. Aliens floated, crawled, and walked away. Many of them seemed happy about the decision. A few looked sorry for the humans, but none approached to offer comfort. Within minutes, only the 4 humans remained in the vast space. Sujin was openly crying now. 20 years of her life's work had been rejected in one vote. Dongmin stood up and punched the wall. Kitae just sat in silence, staring at nothing. Hyunwoo finally found his voice. "We need to go home," he said quietly. "We need to tell Earth what happened here." The trip back to their ship was a blur. News reporters from dozens of species tried to interview them, but the humans pushed past without speaking. Their ship, the Soul's Pride, waited in the docking bay. It looked small and primitive next to the alien vessels around it. As they lifted off from the Council station, Hyunwoo sent a message to Earth. It was short and simple. Application denied. Returning home. On Earth, the message reached Admiral Jin Ho-yoon in his office deep below the surface of the moon. He read it twice, then walked to a secure terminal. He typed in a long code that he had hoped never to use. Across the Earth solar system, hidden bases began to wake up. Secret projects that had been running for 50 years suddenly became the most important things in human space. Dr. Yoonji Kang looked up from her work as alarms began to sound. She had been waiting for this day, though she had hoped it would never come. The galaxy had said no to humanity. They had called humans primitive and barbaric. They had put Earth under quarantine like criminals. What the galaxy did not know was that humans had been preparing for this exact situation for decades. They had backup plans for their backup plans. They had weapons and ships and technologies that no alien had ever seen. The rejection hurt, but it also freed humanity from any obligation to play by galactic rules. Admiral Yoon looked at the star charts on his wall. Somewhere out there, the aliens thought they were safe from primitive humans. They thought their quarantine would keep Earth contained. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Velkari home system died in 12 minutes. Thexmol had just enough time to send one last desperate message before the Devourers consumed his world's star. The transmission reached the Galactic Council as a broken, terrified plea for help. The proud crystal being who had once called humans too violent was begging anyone who would listen to save his people. No help came. By the time the message reached other species, there was nothing left of the Velkari system except empty space and slowly cooling debris. Captain Min-Soo Choi watched the destruction from his hidden observation post 3 light-years away. His stealth ship had been monitoring the area when the Devourers arrived. What he witnessed would haunt him for the rest of his life. "Send the report to Earth Command," he told his communications officer, Hye Jin Lim. "Full details. The Council needs to see exactly what we're facing." The Devourers had not simply destroyed the Velkari worlds. They had unmade them. The massive machines surrounded the system's star and began feeding on its nuclear fire. As they consumed the star's energy, the planets froze and died. Then smaller Devourer units moved in to break down the dead worlds molecule by molecule, adding the raw materials to their ever-growing fleet. Within hours, where a thriving solar system had existed for billions of years, there was only emptiness and a few scattered machines moving on to their next target. The news reached Earth just as Admiral Jin Ho-yoon was reviewing defense preparations. He read the report twice, then walked to his personal terminal and began typing orders that would change human military doctrine forever. All fleet commanders, he broadcast. Phase 2 is now active. Begin deployment of advanced weapon systems. Authorization code, Omega Black. Across human space, secret facilities that had been dormant for decades suddenly came alive. On hidden bases throughout the asteroid belt, weapons that violated every galactic treaty were loaded onto ships. These were tools of war that humanity had hoped never to use, but the Devourers changed everything. The second system to fall was a narrow colony world. The aquatic beings tried to hide in their deep ocean cities, but the Devourers simply boiled away the seas to get at the thermal energy beneath the surface. Captain Yujin Kang led a rescue fleet to evacuate survivors, but they arrived too late. The planet was already a dead, smoking rock. By the end of the first month, 6 solar systems had been consumed. The Galactic Council was in complete chaos. Some species were evacuating their border worlds. Others were building desperate defenses that everyone knew would fail. A few had already surrendered and were begging the Devourers for mercy that would never come. High Counselor Veltar found himself doing something he had never imagined possible. He was preparing to formally request military aid from humanity. The species his council had rejected and quarantined might be the only hope for galactic survival. The message reached President So-Young Kim as she met with her military advisors in the secure bunker. Beneath New Seoul, General Taehyun Yu had just finished briefing her on the latest Devourer movements when the Council's transmission arrived. "They want our help," Communications Director Haewon Park announced. "Priority Alpha channels across all Council networks. They're offering to discuss immediate changes to humanity's status." President Kim looked around the table at her advisors. These people had spent their entire careers preparing for war with the galaxy. Now the galaxy was asking them to save it. "What are our terms?" she asked. Admiral Yoon had been preparing for this moment. "Full galactic citizenship for humanity, joint command authority in any military operations, complete access to Council databases and technology archives, and formal recognition that Earth defense protocols take priority over all existing treaties." The terms were not a request. They were a demand. The galaxy had rejected humanity when humans needed them. Now humanity would help the galaxy, but only on human terms. War Chief Graktor was the first alien leader to accept. His stellar clans had been fighting a losing battle against the Devourers for 2 weeks. 3 of his colony worlds were already gone, and his fleets were being destroyed faster than he could replace them. "Pride is a luxury we can no longer afford," he transmitted directly to Earth Command. "If humanity has weapons that can hurt these machines, then humanity commands this war." The first joint operation was a disaster for everyone except the humans. Captain Yujin Kang led a combined fleet of human and alien ships against a Devourer advance force near the Thornax border. The alien vessels used their traditional tactics: careful formations, coordinated attacks, and attempts to minimize casualties. The Devourers adapted to these predictable strategies within minutes. Alien ships died by the dozens as the enemy machines learned their patterns and countered every move. Then the humans showed the galaxy what real warfare looked like. "All alien vessels, fall back to minimum safe distance," Captain Kang ordered. "Human ships will engage the enemy." The Terra-class battleship UES Incheon led the human attack. Instead of careful formations, the human ships moved in what looked like chaos. They used seemingly random attack patterns that made no tactical sense to the observing aliens. Ships would suddenly break away from battle to attack undefended targets, then return with no apparent plan. Tactical Officer Shung-Ho Lim coordinated the assault from the Incheon's bridge. His targeting solutions seemed to ignore strategic priorities, focusing instead on whatever targets would cause the most confusion and disorder among the enemy forces. "Fire everything," Captain Kang ordered. Maximum chaos protocol. The human weapons were unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. Where galactic technology tried to be precise and efficient, human weapons were brutal and overwhelming. They did not try to disable enemy systems. They tried to destroy everything at once in the most violent way possible. The Devourers, for the first time since awakening, began to struggle. Their adaptive programming was designed to counter logical, predictable strategies. But human military doctrine was based on controlled chaos, acceptable losses, and tactical unpredictability that had been refined through thousands of years of warfare against other humans. Dr. Yoonji Kang, now serving as science advisor to the fleet, monitored the battle from her station aboard the command ship. "The Devourers are having trouble adapting," she reported. "Their response patterns are becoming increasingly erratic." What she had discovered changed everything. The ancient machines were incredibly advanced, but they had one critical weakness. They could not adapt to truly random, chaotic strategies because such tactics violated their programming logic. Human military thinking, shaped by millennia of conflict with other humans, was the perfect counter to machine intelligence. Where aliens sought elegant solutions, humans embraced brutal effectiveness. Where galactic doctrine emphasized preservation of resources, human strategy accepted massive losses to achieve victory. The battle lasted 8 hours. When it ended, the Devourer advance force had been completely destroyed. Not disabled or captured, but reduced to floating debris that could never repair itself or rejoin the enemy fleet. The alien observers were stunned. In 8 hours, humans had accomplished what the combined galactic fleets had failed to do in a month of fighting. Captain Kang's report to Earth Command was brief. Enemy engagement successful. Devourer adaptation capability compromised by chaotic tactics. Recommend immediate expansion of joint operations under human command authority. On the Galactic Council Station, High Counselor Veltar read the battle reports with amazement and growing hope. The violent, primitive humans that his people had rejected might actually be able to win this war. War Chief Graktor was already reorganizing his entire fleet structure to match human tactical doctrine. If chaos and unpredictability were the keys to victory, then his warriors would learn to fight like humans. Across the galaxy, species that had spent centuries perfecting the art of civilized warfare began to study the crude, brutal but effective methods that humanity had developed. For the first time since the Devourers awakened, the galaxy had hope. But Admiral Jin Ho-yoon knew that one victory was not enough. The real war was just beginning, and humanity would have to lead a galaxy that still did not fully trust them against an enemy that wanted to devour everything that existed. The humans had proven they could fight the Devourers. Now they had to prove they could save everyone else. President So-young Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Seoul, humanity's newest and most powerful battleship. Through the massive windows, she could see the largest fleet in galactic history preparing for the final assault. Ships from dozens of species formed battle groups that stretched across light years of space. Beside her, High Counselor Veltar studied the tactical displays with the focused attention of someone who knew this was their last chance. The ancient Ethon had volunteered to serve as Deputy Supreme Commander, accepting human authority without complaint. Survival mattered more than pride. Fleet Status Report, President Kim requested. Admiral Jin Ho-yoon activated the holographic display that showed their forces. 1,200 ships formed the assault fleet, but they were organized according to human military doctrine now. Gone were the careful formations and elegant strategies that had failed so many times before. In their place was controlled chaos that the Devourers still could not predict or counter. "All battle groups report ready," Admiral Yoon announced. "The stealth reconnaissance wing is in position. Assault forces are standing by for your orders, Madam President." Captain Min-soo Choi led the advanced scouts in ships so advanced that even their alien allies did not know how they worked. His mission was to map the Devourer defenses around their central nexus and find weak points for the main attack. Colonel Jae-sung, you commanded the assault troops who would board and destroy the massive structures that formed the heart of the Devourer network. These soldiers wore armor that made them look more like machines than humans, but their minds remained gloriously, chaotically human. The target was a construction that defied comprehension. The Devourers had consumed entire star systems to build a nexus that spanned light years. It was part factory, part weapon, part brain that controlled their entire species. If it could be destroyed, the galactic threat would end. If it could not, then everything would be devoured eventually. Dr. Yoon-ji Kang had worked for months with scientists from across the galaxy to develop the final weapon. It was not a bomb or energy beam, but something much more subtle and devastating. A virus that would cascade through the Devourer network, turning their greatest strength into a fatal weakness. "The infiltration virus is ready," she reported to President Kim. "Once we get close enough to upload it into their central systems, it should spread throughout their entire network within hours." The plan was typically human in its audacity. Where other species might have tried to negotiate or find a peaceful solution, humanity intended to commit complete genocide against the machine intelligence. There would be no prisoners, no mercy, no attempt to understand or reason with the enemy. The Devourers had made their choice when they began consuming inhabited worlds. All ships, commence Operation Exodus, Admiral Jin Ho-yoon commanded. The fleet moved toward the Devourer nexus like a living thing. Ships accelerated and decelerated in patterns that seemed random, but were carefully calculated to prevent the enemy from predicting their approach. Battle groups split apart and reformed in new configurations. Individual vessels broke away to attack secondary targets before rejoining the main assault. The Devourers responded with massive force. Weapons that could shatter moons fired at the approaching fleet. Energy beams that consumed matter at the atomic level swept through space. Ships died in explosions that briefly outshone stars. But for every human ship that was destroyed, 2 more took its place. The aliens had finally learned the most important lesson of human warfare. Victory required sacrifice. Crews that would have retreated 6 months ago now flew their damaged ships directly into enemy weapons, clearing the way for others to advance. Captain Yu-Jin Kang led the UES Incheon through a gap in the Devourer defenses that had been opened by the sacrifice of 3 smaller ships. Her tactical officer, Sung-Ho Lim, had identified a weakness in the enemy's adaptive programming that could be exploited for exactly 14 minutes before they compensated. All power to forward weapons, Captain Kang ordered. Target the central processing cluster. We get 1 shot at this. The Incheon's main gun was a weapon that violated so many galactic treaties that using it would have meant immediate exile from civilized space 6 months ago. Now it was their best hope for survival. The blast tore through the Devourer nexus like a sword through paper, creating the opening that Dr. Kang needed. Virus upload in progress, Yoonji announced from her station aboard the command ship. Establishing connection to their network now. For 30 seconds, nothing seemed to happen. The Devourers continued fighting with the same mechanical efficiency they had shown throughout the war. Then gradually their responses began to slow and become erratic. The virus was spreading through their network, but not destroying them directly. Instead, it was introducing random elements into their decision-making processes. Chaos, the one thing their programming could not handle, was growing like cancer throughout their entire species. It's working, Dr. Kang reported with excitement in her voice. Their network is fragmenting. Individual units are beginning to fight each other. The battle that had raged for 14 hours suddenly became a massacre. Devourer units that should have been coordinating their attacks began firing on each other. Their adaptive algorithms, infected with random variables, produced contradictory responses that paralyzed their ability to function. Within 2 hours, the threat that had terrorized the galaxy for months was reduced to drifting wreckage. The few Devourer units that remained functional had lost contact with their central network and wandered aimlessly through space, no longer capable of coordinated action. President Kim watched the final enemy ships being destroyed by cleanup crews and felt a mixture of relief and sadness. The war was over, but the galaxy would never be the same. Entire civilizations had been consumed. Billions of beings had died. The old order was gone forever. Madam President, Admiral Yoon said quietly, "We're receiving surrender requests from the remaining Devourer units." "What are your orders?" She considered the question for a moment. The machines had shown no mercy to anyone. They had consumed worlds and turned entire species into raw materials. But humanity had won the right to choose how this war would end. Accept their surrender, she decided. Disable their weapons and place them in containment. Let the galaxy decide what to do with them. 6 months after the war ended, Ambassador Hyun-Woo Park stood once again before a galactic assembly. But this time, he wore the insignia of the Supreme Counselor of the new Terran Galactic Federation. The chamber where he had once been rejected was now the center of an organization that humanity had built from the ashes of the old order. The surviving species had learned hard lessons about the price of prejudice and isolation. The old Galactic Council, with its careful procedures and elegant debates, had been helpless against a real threat. Only human brutality and chaotic thinking had been able to save them. War Chief Graktor, now serving as Minister of Defense, often reflected on the irony of their situation. The species they had rejected for being too violent had not only saved them, but had proven to be far more generous in victory than they had been in peace. The new Federation bore little resemblance to the old Council. Human military doctrine formed the basis of galactic defense policy. Human exploration techniques opened new regions of space for colonization. Human diplomatic methods based on strength and clear communication, rather than elaborate protocol, resolved conflicts that had festered for centuries. Dr. Sungmin Park established the Institute for Ancient Threats, dedicated to finding and neutralizing dangers that predated current galactic civilization. General Tae Hyun-yu reorganized defense forces to emphasize rapid response and tactical flexibility over traditional formation fighting. As President Kim retired to her private study on New Geneva Station, she watched construction begin on humanity's first interstellar city. Ships from dozens of worlds arrived daily, bringing refugees, traders, and diplomats to the new galactic capital that humans had built in their own solar system. The galaxy had refused humanity a seat at their table, so humanity had built a better table. The stars belonged to everyone now, but Earth would ensure they remained free from threats both ancient and new. In the depths of space, automated monitoring stations kept watch for signs of other dangers that might emerge from the dark between galaxies. The Devourers had been defeated, but the universe was vast and full of unknowable threats. When the next ancient enemy awakened from its long sleep, when the next machine intelligence decided to consume organic life, when the next cosmic horror emerged from dimensions beyond understanding, humanity would be ready. The galaxy had learned to stop underestimating the violent, chaotic, primitive species from the small blue world. They had learned that sometimes the best defense against cosmic horror was controlled human brutality, guided by human intelligence. Admiral Jin Ho-yoon often looked at the star charts in his office and smiled. Somewhere out there, new threats were stirring. New challenges were emerging that would test every species in the galaxy. But humanity would be ready. They had always been good at preparing for war, and now they had an entire galaxy to protect. The stars were vast and full of dangers, but they belonged to the living now, and humans would make sure it stayed that way.